Welcome all to an episode of Turin Giants and The Scoop. This is Turin Giants episode 312. Today we're going to bring you not only post-game for the Genoa game that just happened, but Frederic and I are going to run you through the deadline day scoops as they stand. Clearly not a lot of movement's been happening in the market, but we're here to help guide you through what might be happening in the next 24 hours. My name is Zach, and I'm joined, of course, by Frederic, but also Patrick and Rav. Gentlemen, how are we after maybe the most scintillating game of football you have ever seen in your life?
Goodness. That was tough.
Yeah.
That was tough going. There is no denying that at all. Patrick, what did you think?
A win's a win. Can we just say that?
Yeah.
If you're watching on video, Frederic did not respond, but his face gave all the response that you needed to know. Well, we're going to talk all about it in just a second. Before we do, if you're not already following us on Instagram at Turin Giants, extremely active, really good content there. If you haven't subscribed to our YouTube, we're bolstering our numbers, and we're asking y'all, loyal listeners, to contribute to that as well. It is at Turin Giants Official on YouTube, and of course, TurinGiants.com. And I think that does it for our housekeeping. Let's jump into the intro, and then we will get into the post-game Genoa. Alrighty, welcome all to the post-game portion of this episode. We're going to start with the lineup. Obviously, the game just over, 1-0 drab win for Juventus. With the same starting lineup as last game, except for the forced substitution due to Cambiaso's boneheaded red card, shall we say. And I was a bit surprised, and I'm looking at you, Patrick, to see João Mario starting on the left, when I think many folks, myself included, assumed that we would get the return of Kostic at that position. Was that as surprising to you as it was to me?
It was, and I didn't see João Mario having the best game either. I don't know if this is a result of Tudor not having full belief in Kostic. There's something to be said about Kalulu being there. He's got boundless energy. You could see it throughout the entire game, that in both games, really. So I was a bit shocked to see João Mario there, and it must be said, he didn't have the best game. So I don't know what's going on behind the scenes with Kostic, or if he's just going to be used as a sub, but I agree, this seemed to me like the game for him. I'm a bit confused how Tudor is going to line up against Inter next week. If he thought João Mario was a difference maker enough on the left, is that going to be the same formation? But all in all, it really shows how boneheaded the Cambiaso decision was, and now Tudor has to kind of play this way. So,
if I can just intervene, I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
About Kostic. Apparently, Tudor wasn't happy with the way he was training the last week. Several run-ins with him personally as well. And I think that's why he decided to pick João Mario or whoever over Kostic. One could argue that it might be a spot for McKennie there, but Tudor wanted to keep McKennie as sort of a fresh sub if needed be, because Bremer wasn't too good as well. Gatti had some minor complaints, so I think he saved McKennie for that eventuality.
Rav, if you had to pick your wingbacks, right and left, starting against Inter, who would you start Based on what you saw from Jean-Marie on the left, Kalulu on the right, of course, what we've seen from Kostic and McKennie out in those positions in the past, who would you start?
Oh, that's so tough. I think I'm trying to like do all the mental arithmetic now in terms of formations. Are we? I mean, we know that Cambios is suspended. So I think, to be honest, I would be inclined to put João Mario on the right and maybe, I don't know, maybe put McKennie on the left. It feels like it's the kind of game where those guys are not going to be getting forward all that much. I don't want to be negative because we've won 2 games in a row, but I just feel like there is going to be a lot of pressure. We need players that we can maybe rely on more defensively than possibly going forward. Or maybe players that can get forward very quickly, but are going to be a bit more astute at the back. And I think Kalulu is an extra centre back, really, as opposed to a wing back, is probably going to be the right call.
But Patrick, do you think that the Derby, third game of the season, might be too big of an occasion to throw João Mario a starting spot in?
My nervousness comes from João Mario against Denzel Dumfries. I just don't think he has the defensive fortitude against Dumfries' relentless energy. I do agree with putting McKennie up against him. I think that's actually a better matchup for McKennie, knowing he can play the role of just enforcing the position, maybe not necessarily needing to go forward as much. So whatever we can do to keep really Kostic or João Mario away from Denzel Dumfries, I'm game for.
Sorry, I just realized I meant Kalulu on the right and McKennie on the left, not João Mario. Sorry.
Okay.
Take it all back. It's completely incorrect on my part.
I think the Kalulu and McKennie is the safest option in my book in terms of balance, possession, work, two-way work rate, and the like. So it'll be curious on what Tudor does there. But we're here to talk about the Genoa game. And despite just the one change, we didn't see a notable difference in the first half as we did against Parma. I would say there were 2 pretty horrible halves of football. Frederic, is there anything we can take away from this game from our first half performance?
Well, I think regardless, playing away at Genoa is always going to be a difficult game, not just for us, but it will be for many opponents, as it has been in the past. But it's clear to see that we're not on 100% game level yet as a team, which is completely understandable this early in the season. But to me, the thing I take away most is that we seem more stable as opposed to last year. This was a game we would have drawn or lost last year. I'm 100% sure of that. I think many people with me will agree on that. But we got 3 points, and in all fairness, I'd like some good football. I want to see some fine games, but at this point, I'm happy. We're 6 out of 6 right now. We're top of the table for the moment. Let's keep it that way. Let's just focus on gaining points, re-strengthening the squad as we can in these final 23 hours of transfer day, and see where we end up. I mean, this has all the makings of a good season up until now, and let's keep this up, and let's just be confident about the way we look. We don't play attractively. We're not stable as a team yet, but we got 6 points out of 2 games.
So Frederic touched on, and we're going to talk a little bit about sort of the implications of this game in general later. But Rav, Frederic did talk about how we did not play well today. We had 80% passing accuracy today versus 89 against Parma. Against Parma, Locatelli in 57 minutes had 55 passes, only 33 passes in more time today. Thuram had 60 passes against Parma, 36 today. And I think it was clear to anyone watching the game that we just struggled to work our possession in and build this combo play. And I guess my question to you is that more towards us struggling to play at a tough away venue, or is that more so because Genoa came to play and they were really frustrating us affirmatively?
I think you have to give credit to Genoa. As much as I'd like to maybe bash our midfield slightly, but To be honest, I think this was very much down to Vieira and his tactics. I think Massini and Frendrup were just very sort of well placed to kind of slow everything down. I think, to be honest, across the pitch, you look at the entirety of the way that they played up until we scored, it wasn't so much about them being at home and playing to win. It felt very much like they were just there to stop us from playing. And maybe if they got lucky, they were going to score a goal, but they set up incredibly well across the pitch. That Jonathan David was so frustrated. The midfield was so frustrating at times. It just got to a point where a couple of times you could just see that the defenders were just firing balls over the top, hoping that it would get to Yildiz or Conceição. Conceição didn't have a particularly good game, but again, I think part of that is down to the fact that the Genoa backline were very well drilled. They put a lot of pressure on us. So I think maybe the nice way of saying it is kind of 50-50. It was a little bit of us maybe not playing at our absolute best, but I think a big portion of it is also down to Genoa. It was like playing in mud or like in a bog. Everything was just so slow. They made it really labored. They made it hard for us to pass the ball around. And it kind of felt like we sort of reverted to, just fire it forward or fire it in from the flanks and let's hope for the best. So like Frederick was saying, I think this is the kind of game that would have definitely ended a draw last season. So we have to give them a little bit of credit, at least for grinding out that victory.
In the last two seasons, we've kind of stunk at away. Right? In Allegri's last season, so this was 2 seasons ago, we were 8 wins, 7 draws, 4 losses, which is pretty tame. Last year, we were 7 wins, 9 draws, 3 losses, which for a team of Juventus' stature is just unacceptable. So I agree that we've struggled away, and to come away with a win is good. How did we do that? Well, we did it, strangely enough, through another set piece. Patrick, why don't you talk us through the goal and about what surprised you? How did we get it, and what surprised you about it?
I think the biggest surprise about it was the fact that it's now 2 games and 2 set piece goals. What kind of Juventus is this? The Juventus from like 2014? I mean, come on. Watching Vlahovic execute that play, it actually felt to me as soon as that ball came in, you saw him gather some space, kind of unmarked. And when he went up, I almost had the feeling like, oh, this is going to go in. Like it just fell to him. I actually didn't even think for a second it was Vlahovic with his finishing prowess over the last year. I had that feeling it was going to go in. So I make no mistake about it. It was a very good striker's finish. And I'm happy that, dare I say, he showed some intuition that I haven't seen from him in a long time. So we were talking in our group chat, if this is what it takes for Dusan Vlahovic to get fired up, this whole situation about Jonathan David, about the potentials for Randall Colomwani and all the rest, if this is what it takes for Dusan Vlahovic to be fired up, then sign me up. But a very good striker's finish, again, showed intuition, something that you would expect from a guy who at one point was considered one of the up-and-coming nines in world football.
What does this mean, I think, to 2 players, Patrick? Kostic, who obviously delivered a wonderful ball, and Vlahovic, who've been kind of, pseudo pariahs, at least within the fan base. Do you think this will switch the script a little bit, or is this too little too late, or this doesn't move the needle at all either way?
I'm usually the one that takes the unpopular opinion here. Kostic and Vlahovic, if they were to remain at the club as backups, are frankly quite competent backups. It wasn't long ago that both of those 2 were consistent starters for this club, right? So I think perspective's going to play in the hearts and minds of all watching. If they can contribute and make positive efforts to the club, I don't know how anybody could objectively look at that and say it's a bad thing. So I'm going to take this for what it's worth. They both made great plays, and they're professionals. We expect this of them, but also for all the fans watching, if they continue to perform, I would at least advocate that you give them a striker's chance, pun intended, at these 2 this season.
Rav, Patrick says it's objective to keep your 22 million gross striker. What is your take?
I kind of like what Tudor is doing in one sense, because it kind of feels like Up until this point, I think he's managed the situation pretty well. You've got a striker who is earning a lot of money, who the club are quite clear that they wanted him to leave and they wanted rid of him, and it hasn't worked out. And yet Tudor has been very encouraging about Vlahovic. He's been really sort of in his corner. He's spoken very positively about him. I know that we as fans are probably a little bit more emotionally invested. I'm sure Tudor is as well. But I think the man management in terms of just keeping this guy on ice, so to speak, and then bringing him out off the bench, and he scored 2 games in a row, and today he won us the game. So something is definitely going right. I mean, at one point I've been a little bit nostalgic, but I was kind of looking at the lineup, and they were bringing on Kostic, Koopmeiners, and Vlahovic, and I was thinking, okay, like 2-3 seasons ago, you imagine those 3 players coming on, everyone would be like, wow, that's amazing. I know the stock in all 3 of them has fallen a fair bit, but yeah, I think credit to Tudor. He's doing really well in terms of managing. He's got what looks like a first choice 11 that he wants to stick to, pretty much like the bare bones. And he's told these other players, look, you guys are going to stay, but it's going to be from the bench. And they seem to be quite content with that so far. And it's paid off. So who am I to like that?
You maybe answered my next question, which was directed towards you, is related to kind of what you said. Is we saw today the winning goal come through 2 subs, and you know, oftentimes when a manager doesn't make the subs at the right time or they don't have an impact, you say the manager's terrible. But on days like today, where the subs come in and make the difference, you say the manager's a genius. I guess to what extent do you attribute today's win to Tudor's influence, or maybe on the flip side, just players coming in and executing what they're supposed to do, or both, I guess?
I think it's a combination of both. I think it's more so Tudor. I think the way that he's managed this team is, you know, sometimes you can go into the season and you've got players that, like I say, maybe we're going to leave and now they're ending up on the bench, and you've got 23, 24 egos to manage in the dressing room, including the highest paid player of the club, effectively being a second choice striker. That is a difficult situation to manage. And he has done that incredibly well. He's massaged his ego or whatever, and he's done the whole man management thing. And like I say, he has the bare bones of a starting 11 that he wants to use week in, week out. Those are the players, and they've probably been told, look, you guys are going to be the starting choices. Backup players are going to be the backup players. And he's used it effectively. And I think also the idea of sort of having a more maybe sort of nimble forward like Jonathan David, who runs a lot, who's linking play up a lot, he's a bit more of a kind of a wily character. He can wear down the back line a little bit, sort of tire them out with his movement. And then you get to the 60, 70 minute mark, back line is tired. Okay, let's bring on Dusan, who's like 6'2", who's just going to like barge into these already tired players, who's going to put pressure on them, who's going to maybe not hold up the ball, but he's just going to try and do what he does best, which is he's pretty good in the air. He's just going to try and shoot. And it's worked. And like I say, who are we to knock this? Because it's working. It's not going to be pretty every single week. It's not going to be the intricate passes. We're not going to get 90% pass success rate every single week. There will be games like this where it's going to be really, really tough to watch. But at this point, who cares? You know, like there's a lot of competition up there at the top at the moment. And as long as you grind out the wins and Tudor is managing the players well, and the players are coming on and doing what they're supposed to do, I'm good with that. I'm happy with that.
Frederic, we talk Kostic and Vlahovic, but what about your good friend, Mr. Koopmeiners? We've seen him come in as sort of a deep lying or more deep lying center midfield in 2 games as a sub. What is your evaluation of his level of play and how he seems to feel from a comfortability standpoint into this 11 versus what we saw last year?
Well, I think he's grown considerably since last season, even though that wasn't too difficult because you could put a sack of potatoes in midfield last season and get better results. But I thought he was better at home against Parma than he was today. But also, I think that's due to the fact of the difficulty of today's game, the high pressure of Genoa, their solid backline and midfield that did everything to prevent us from playing football. In all honesty, I have to say a bit parallel situation with Locatelli. We seem to score when Locatelli goes off.
Well, he didn't have a very good game today, but
No, he
but
didn't.
maybe there's
bad.
something there. There's some maybe that yeah. There were some, and we're not going to really overstate it. I think we mentioned Locatelli. We mentioned that Chico didn't have a good game. We didn't have a lot of folks. Yildiz didn't have a good game. We're not going to really stress on that. But, I think it's fair to say, right, Frederic, that we're seeing a Koop Miners that seems to understand where he fits in this team and in this role a little bit more, which is a foundation for him to grow on, as opposed to how lost he seemed last year. Is that a fair
Yeah,
is that a fair evaluation?
very fair. And also, I think that the fact that he was available for the preseason with us made a huge difference, because last year he wasn't. You miss your whole preseason, get to know your teammates, your position, your potential position, your coach, and whatever. So he was just thrown at the wolves, and regarded as our Lord and Savior after a 65 million euro transfer.
Mm-hmm.
That's a lot of pressure for somebody who doesn't engage in preseason. He had a couple of a bit more time this preseason, and maybe it's my eyes because I'm old. As you noticed, I'm starting wearing glasses now. But he seems slimmer than last season. He seems more, how shall I put it, athletic in regards to his posture and his form overall. So I mean, there's improvement, and I think if we'd have said that, and we would have uh, put out our looked in our glass balls for a couple of months ago, I don't think anybody would have said that it was a possibility. But here we are. Let's hope he continues to improve and grow, and we'll see where it takes us.
Can I be the perhaps Debbie Downer and assume Frederick's role? Right, this is something that you usually do, right? So while you're heaping praise on Koop Miners, right? Like, it's nice to see him appear to have an improvement in his role so far in limited quantities, right? This will all come to the forefront when he has to start a game, when somebody's, man needs to be rotated or has a yellow card suspension or something like that. So I maybe am being a little bit skeptical over the course of much more responsibility for him, long minutes, right? Starting a match, whatever. But while I do see a better understanding of him and his role, I still have a little bit of cause for concern once we get to that time where the more responsibility is going to fall on his shoulders. So I'm going to be done with my Frederick role of being a Debbie Downer, right? That's usually him. I have
Negative
no,
Nancy.
it's Patrick, you're the Debbie Downer. He's the negative Nancy. Okay, we got to get our name. We got to get our names right here. Okay.
If I can weigh in though, I think that's also because of once again Tudor's man management, which is very important. I think
Rav.
he's keeping Koop Miners off the pitch for a certain amount of time in order for him to come in and gain some confidence and regain more of a fitness level and build him a bit up towards the level that is acceptable to be a starter for Juventus. Because I think we could all see last year that it also had to do with his own self-image. I mean, you could see the way that he was walking, he was running, he wasn't comfortable with himself, he wasn't into that flow that he had at Atalanta. And I think this is something that Tudor is doing just to bring him back up to speed slowly and steadily.
I think that it's nice to talk about, and Rav mentioned it, and you did too, Federica Banniger, just at least contrasting to Mota last year, that does seem to get the man management right. I mean, the tactics, Tudor's tactics are what they are, but the man management can elevate a team or can destroy a team. And so it's nice to talk about a manager who seems to be making the right decisions to elevate his players. Which is good. So I got a question, just taking a step back about this game. Okay. I think there was not much to talk about. We covered it all in, 20 minutes. And I'm going to kind of, Frederic already kind of gave us his answer to this. So Rav, I'm going to go to you and then I'm going to go to Patrick. But do you take the optimistic view? This is a tough away game. You just got to stomach it. It can be ugly. That's fine. You just get the win and you move on. Or do you think of this performance as maybe more pessimistically, it's a cause for concern. We were not very good against a Genoa team that's not going to threaten for European positions. We were playing our, best 11 minus Cambiaso. Shouldn't we not have played better? So Rob, first, I mean, do you take that pessimistic view, or do you think this is actually, you're optimistic after this game?
I mean, in the past, my sort of default position is always optimism. I'm an optimistic person by nature. So if you look at this and you kind of think, okay, certain new players in this squad, not loads, but a couple here and there, it's going to take time for them to kind of figure things out a little bit. I think Tudor also last season, at the end of the season, he had a completely different agenda, which was Champions League or bust. He's going to play more conservatively this time around. He can maybe play a little bit more expressively, so the tactics might be ever so slightly different. All that said, I think the title is never won against Inter or Milan or Napoli. I think the title is won when you played 5 games in the south, in the north, whatever, against the really tough, difficult teams that are going to be battling for relegation, that are always going to play with 10 men behind the ball because Juve are coming to town. And if they can get a 0-0 draw against Juve, that's like a mini trophy, not to be condescending, but it's like a little, it's like a mini trophy that, or a 1-0 win for them is going to be a big deal for the whole season. There are going to be teams like that throughout the season. So I take the view that grinding out a victory like this is massive. And I say that as Inter are currently losing 2-1 at home against Udinese. So, it's these little sometimes difficult teams that you think that you sort of take for granted, that you need to pay attention to, that you need to grind out the win. You need to get the 3 points, because that is what is going to add up at the end of the season. So I take it entirely as a positive today. It's a bad game. It's difficult for us to watch, but I take the positive being the 3 points.
All right, Patrick. Frederic was optimistic. Rob was optimistic. Is our Debbie Downer going to double down about this game? Or are you optimistic as well?
Yeah, you have to be optimistic. I love what Rob said about, the championships in the season are won by these sorts of games. The commentary even mentioned, right, all the draws that Juventus had last year. We've brought it up countless times already that this game would have been a draw last year, et cetera, et cetera. I'm trying to put my realism glasses on when I watch these games. And quite honestly, this is not the Juventus side from 10 years ago where the expectation was to just win every game. Without a doubt, it wasn't, even really a challenge in some aspects. And so knowing this team, knowing that Tudor is still relatively new, knowing that it's not the teams from 10 years ago, any sort of win is a good win. And that the motto of, winning is the only thing that matters suits me, because I'm a coach, right? At the end of the day, it may not be pretty, but you're coming home with the win and the other team is not, right? They whether they're home or away, either they have a long trip back from wherever they came from with a loss, or they have their home fans experience a loss on their home soil. So I'm optimistic as well. 3 points for this Juventus are never guaranteed. And so 6 points out of 6 to begin the season, despite the fact that we didn't play champagne football today. I'm going to join the optimism club and say it's happy to take home a win, even if it was a little bit ugly.
We had 16 draws in the league last year. I will take a win and run. Alrighty, real quick, we're going to round the horn. Ugly game, but as we do all post games, I'm going to ask each one of you to give your player of the match. Patrick, you finished talking. We'll start with you. We'll go reverse order. Patrick, your player of the match.
Does it have to be a player, or can I go Tudor?
You can go Tudor.
Yeah, I think what we've been talking about, right? Like his man management, the substitutions in both games have been rather critical, but this one especially, when all we needed was one goal, and the subs he brought on manufactured that goal. So it just feels like there's more of an imposing presence on the sideline that I didn't get under Thiago Motta. I just remember the cameras, looking at Motta last year, like he was a deer in the headlights all too often, which I think Frederic has said this before. Like it seems like it's something that we don't need to talk about anymore because Tudor is now the coach, but I'm glad he's there. It almost makes me feel like a little bit guilty for maybe wanting somebody bigger, better on the sidelines, right, when they were considering who to hire. I'm glad Tudor's there. He's Juventino. He fights for the club, fights for the badge or the J or whatever you want to call it these days. But all that said, I think Tudor's my man of the match for all those things we said about player management, substitutions, but also just the presence he provides on the sidelines. 2 games in, it seems like he's the right guy for the job. I'm happy he's there.
Rob, your player of the match.
Sorry, I laughed because I was going to say the same thing as Patrick, but I'll swap it out. I'm going to say Vlahovic just because, he scored the winning goal. He came on. He did that very cool celebration where he just kind of looks and nods. I don't think he's been too arrogant with it at the moment. He's been booed. He's been jeered. He's going through I say a difficult time. He's earning 12 million a year. It's hard to say that these guys are having a difficult time.
12 net. We want to be very clear. 12 net.
Yeah, exactly. So I'll put it in quotation marks. He's going through a difficult time in terms of his future and all the rest. But he seems to be okay so far with coming off the bench and scoring winning goals, or at least seeing the results. So Vlahovic, and long may this continue. Let's hope it carries on.
I will say this is at the end of the first half, 42nd minute, give or take, Jonathan David got a rebound off the keeper within the 6-yard box, put it right over the goal. And that's the exact type of miss that we've seen from Vlahovic, and this exact type of miss that we've criticized heavily, Vlahovic being unable to convert. But today was David not doing that, which was unacceptable. We have to apply the same standard. Then Dusan comes in and puts home that clean header. So I think you have to give the love to the people who deserve it, and the criticism also to the folks that deserve it. And I think it's important that we call that out and be fair to ourselves as well as the players, right? Frederic, your player of the game. Is there anybody else who played well? A Tudor, the coach, and a Dusan off the bench.
The only one, and this may come as no surprise for myself, but I loved Kefren again.
Really?
I think he, with all things considered, he was our best player. And I honestly feel that if he'd had a better shot, like a better strike, he'd be one of the best box-to-box players in Europe.
He does absolutely need to work on his finishing, but he's outplayed. I will say this is he has outplayed Locatelli in 2 straight games. We expect,
easily.
Rob. I agree.
Can we even say going back to last season? I know, Locatelli had a nice season, but man, Kefren's. We've talked in our group chat. Is he the best bargain buy for Juventus in over a decade? I mean, come on.
We're not going to talk about that here. We don't have the time. But that's a good topic, Patrick, to discuss and to ping us with. And or maybe we'll post on our Instagram at Turin Giants. Please follow. Kefren's rise last year, it was toward the end. I mean, there was the weird benching around the sacking of Mota. There was definitely inconsistency displayed in the first half. I think we all saw an improvement, but there might have been some questions, whether we knew it or not. I think we all kind of are curious to what extent we would see Kefren build off of what he played last year early this season. I think it's clear that he has not taken any step back over the offseason, and he's just continued to moving forward, which is awesome to see. I am a little bit surprised that he so clearly has outplayed Locatelli these 2 games, considering how important Locatelli was last season under Tudor to how he played as well. But clearly a quality player. I will potentially surprise you and all of our listeners. None of your players were FOTMob's player of the game. Of course, I don't particularly buy into the FOTMob's player of the game that much, but this did surprise me. FOTMob's player of the game was Di Gregorio. I know Frederic's not a huge Di Gregorio fan, but maybe Rob, I'll just talk real quick. What did you make of his performance today?
I love the guy. I think he's fantastic. I don't think he had that much to do. There was one save in the first half, I think, which was pretty much straight at him, I think. Yeah. But there was that late chance, which was going round, but he didn't know that. And he just about got his fingertips to it. and sort of turned it around the post. And yes, I know it probably caused more drama at the end than maybe we needed in terms of like the heart attack we were dealing with. But yeah, I think he's just a really good, encouraging keeper. He seems to be growing as an individual. He seems to be a bit more vocal this season in terms of like, sort of, he's not quite Szczesny. He's not like, or Buffon. He's not like shouting at his defenders, all that kind of stuff. But he seems to be a bit more vocal and sort of barking orders a bit more. But yeah, I think he's fantastic. I really do. I can't really pick, so far at least, I can't pick many faults with the way that he plays. His awareness, his positioning, his reactions are really good as well. And like I say, maybe somewhere down the line, he might be more of a sort of a vocal leader in the defense at some point. But yeah, I find him encouraging.
Yeah, I agree as well. Though it was surprising to me that he'd be player of the game. I don't think necessarily. I mean, you usually don't see that with keepers, right? Unless they face 47 shots and save a penalty, right? He had one shot on target that he had to face today. But regardless,
Also, sorry,
go ahead,
for
Frederick.
me it was a two-man game in terms of player of the game for me, for Juventus. I also liked Kelly. I mean, I have to pinch myself for saying it, but I think Kelly played a decent game.
I would agree with that. I think he was very tidy, both in possession as well as defensive. I think he made intelligent runs, stayed back where needed, and was physical against Genoa strikers. Alrighty, that is, I think, the game. Listeners, ladies and gentlemen, Patrick, Rav, we are going to pivot slightly. We're going to leave Genoa behind, and we are going to do a little mini episode of The Scoop as part of episode 312, because Frederic's been working the phones to his multiple contacts within the Juventus organization on what we can expect within the next 22-ish hours from the time that we're recording this. There are a list of names that I have. We're going to kind of just go down the list, try to be pretty quick about it. And if there's any new names that have popped up over the course of this, because Frederic always is getting blown up with texts and messages, of course, we will share those as well. But to kick off our mini scoop portion of it, I think we usually start with Dusan Vlahovic, and we have pretty much all summer. So we will start with today's goal scorer, Dusan Vlahovic. 99% chance to stay, says Komoli. What does he know? Frederic, give us the truth.
I think we can state that we don't have to trust Komoli necessarily after his latest interview and the things that happened. But Vlahovic has opened up to renewal. He said in the post-game interview that he's ready to help Juventus in the future with his services. I mean, that's easy to say when you're earning 12 million net and you don't have any substantial offers. But he's opened up for that renewal. Like I said in our latest episode of The Scoop, that this was something that was a potential thing that could happen. And then again, when they asked Tudor in the post game about Vlahovic staying, leaving, or any other incoming or outgoing transfers, he said, well, there's still a day left. Let's see what happens. So it's a tale of two sides, but I think Vlahovic will eventually stay. And if he stays, I'm pretty sure that he will extend his contract, which would be better for him and for us, because maybe if he keeps scoring at this rate, we'll probably, if we want to sell him, get a decent amount for him.
Are there any teams concretely inquiring about Vlahovic, like Bayern's Nicholas Jackson? Is Nicholas Jackson correct? Or that fall through? It's like, are we on the horn with them immediately saying, hey, would you like a striker? Or is it pretty quiet on the Vlahovic front?
No, there are a lot of offers that are coming in, but as I said, Vlahovic's wage demands are not slim, so to speak. And there's the managerial question about his management who want a hefty fee involving a potential transfer. So that makes things difficult. But Vlahovic feels better under Tudor, feels welcome under Tudor, and the thing I got from the vibe within the dressing room is that a lot of players asked him to stay too, and he had and that surprised me a lot. He had a long conversation with Kefren Turan, where Kefren told him, you need to be a bit more humble. We know what you're worth. We know what you can do, but stay in your lane, prove your worth, and we'll make it happen together. So there's a sort of a pact between several players of Juventus that they want to do a lot more better than they did last season. And apparently Vlahovic is one of them. But like you said, if Byron comes a knocking and offers 40 million euros and 12 and a half net to Dusan, he's on the next plane to Munich. So let's see how this last day unfold, because there are still a lot of question marks. And with Kamoli, I love the guy. You never know what rabbit he's going to pull out of his hat. So we'll see.
I didn't tell you I was going to do this before right now, Frederic. But for each one of these names, I'm going to make you make a pick. Is he gone or is he staying?
Okay.
In your estimation, based on all the evidence and information you have, does he stay, or is he going to be? But this time tomorrow, is he gone?
No.
It was an either or. You can't say no. You have to give me one of the two, Frederic. You got to say.
I think he's staying. I think he's
Okay.
staying. I think he's staying. Bar miracles, or a striker that
Okay.
gets injured last minute or tonight even, or whatever. We will get offers in, though. I'm pretty sure that we will get last minute offers in, but I'm not sure that they will completely satisfy Juventus nor Vlahovic himself.
Could we see this a situation like with Osimhen, where after the window closes, Turkey comes and says, "Hey," or what do you think Dušan's earlier rejection of the offer from Turkey is sort of representative of his opinion about moving to Turkish football?
Nobody is ready for my man Damien Komoli.
Okay. Alrighty. Well, let's move to the next thing. We spent a lot of time on Dušan. We got sort of quick hits on three players. First one, Rugani. We have not spoken much about him lately. He came back from loan. There was some indication that he would be leaving again. He didn't seem to want to. Can we expect him to be sort of a part of our supporting cast this year, or is he gone?
I think he'll stay there. There's been some offers, but he's not too bent on leaving. Not just salary wise. I think the whole Amsterdam experience for him was a bit of a disappointment, especially due to the fact that he didn't perform very well, but they didn't want to extend his loan option or buy him outright or whatever. So I don't think he feels comfortable in entertaining a move abroad. He had some offers within Italy. Last I checked, let me check. I think was Bologna, of course, coming from Juventus to Bologna. So I think he'll ride this season out.
Next name we put on the lists, because at least the Paramount Plus commentators that we have in America said several times that Kostic might be gone. Is he leaving or is he staying, Frederic?
If we get an offer in, I think we'll ship him out. But
So there hasn't. So there really. So we've got no concrete offer on him yet.
We had 2 offers for a loan in which we had to pay at least half his salary.
Yeah, no.
And my man Kamoli does not want to play that game. So if he leaves, I think it could still happen, because, like I said, Tudor is not the biggest fan of Kostic. There's no use for him in this team. If we get a decent offer in, and we don't create a loss on the balance sheet with his transfer or his loan or whatever, and he'll accept that, I think he's off. But don't expect any miracles or transfer fees that will go through the roof. No.
Next name on the list was a request actually from one of our listeners. He was a particular listener was very curious on what the team has in store for Odzic. Are we going to have him as part of our team? Is he going to spend most of the year with the next gen? Are we going to try to loan him out domestically or internationally? What's the story with Odzic?
Well, Odzic is one of those players that Kamoli wants to keep because he has a bright future ahead of him, but also Tudor doesn't want to burn him. So there might be an option for him to send him out on loan, but this is been pushed back a bit because we have other priorities now. And as you could see, Komoli was not present at the game. So he's into this last 24 hours of madness into Mercado where anything can happen. And I think that's something that goes for, for Rugani as well, Kostic as well. These are the types of players that you either, last minute send out on a loan or sell for a decent fee. But of course, you need replacements as well. And I think Komoli's first job now is to search for those replacements if need be and get deals done before we either, like we did a couple of seasons ago, we ship out players without having anyone to fill in the spaces. So I think Komoli is more inclined to do that first.
So the first four names on our list were ones, that push comes to shove, you said are more likely to stay. Dusan, Rugani, Kostic, Ajic. But the last name on our list, Nico Gonzalez, I think you're going to tell us a different tale.
He left. He's off. He'll be at Madrid tomorrow. Um, and I applaud once again my good friend Damien Comoli for this. A loan with a obligation to buy at certain appearances for a little over 34 million euros.
Total? Is that including loan fee? Break it down.
Not
Break it down for us. What goes into that?
it's 33 to buy him outright, and I think we're somewhat along the lines of 1.8 to 2 million for the loan. So which makes it approximately 35,
And they're
which
covering his
means that
wages, yeah.
yes,
Okay.
which means that if the obligation gets triggered, we even made a profit.
Now you say based on appearances. I think, look, we're an Italian club. We all know the loan with option, with obligation that we never have any intention of triggering. How, easy, based on what your sources are telling you, unless you know exactly what the conditions are, how easy are they reportedly to be such that can we rely on them buying him likely, or is it more likely actually that he's going to be coming back next year?
I think it's likely that he's going to be bought also because Simeone was pushing very hard for him. So I think Simeone, his intent is to let Nico Gonzalez play. For Simeone, he's the type of player that's missing right now because Atletico isn't doing very well. The worst start they had in years, I think. Meaning I could see him get those appearances in fairly easy, bar an injury or whatever. But I think this, and knowing Comoli as well, I don't think they'll have like a 60 game presence clause in it. I think that's why it took so long. I think Juventus were really firm on getting their money in, which helps our balance sheet as well. And that's what we're doing, and that's what I've been talking about all these Scoop episodes. We're paving the way for the future. So we're not getting that number right now, which is a pity because we could have used it. On the other hand, it opens up a pathway to the future for us financially. So I think we're pretty much set on Gonzalez staying at Madrid.
I mean, you have what, Weah triggering next year, what we'll say 20 roughly. You have Douglas Luiz 25 roughly. You would have Nico's 30 something roughly. I mean, that's 80 million euro right there.
Yeah. And a lot of the wages of players that are which will be out of their contract, which will be transfer free, meaning that we don't have to pay those wages anymore, which will have a huge impact on our balance sheet as well.
You talked about, replacing players that leave. You said Nico's gone. And the player that we've heard a lot recently that would be the replacement is Jagrova. If Nico's gone, does that mean guaranteed lock it in? Jagrova's in, or what's the status of that deal?
Jagrova will land tomorrow tomorrow around 8 o'clock in Turin. He'll also perform his medical tomorrow. Deal's in place for a couple of days now. He's going to earn 2 point net, if I'm not mistaken, excluding bonuses. And Lille will receive a transfer fee with bonuses included, a sum up towards 21 million euros. So I think we did a very good deal there. If our good friend Jagrova stays fit, because he's been struggling with a, I don't know the correct English term, but it's a pubalgia.
I have no clue, but I will say this: is he missed a lot of last year because of an injury, the first and only really big injury in his career. So obviously, getting him integrated in the team and getting his fitness up will be really important. But that does also seem to be much more of a priority from Tudor than with Mota. And so we'll cross our fingers that's the case, because Zagrova torched us in the Champions League. He'll be linking back up with Jonathan David, and we will have got him for 10 to 15 million euro less than the guy we sold that he's replacing, who had the worst career of his season, the worst season of his career. That's what I'm trying to say. For us last year, which is also kind of crazy to think about, that our three marquee signings, two of them are already gone, and the third one's a backup. Their marquee signings last year, which is maybe a reflection of Malta, Juntili, or both. We got a couple more names on the potential incoming. We have to mention Colomwani. Colomwani has been the most loyal guy. I want Juventus.
He's a
That's
bigger
all I want.
Juventus.
Forget any other club who could pay me more. Forget everybody. Yet we are less than 24 hours away from the deadline, and he's still in Paris. Frederic, what's the
Yes.
deal?
Well, it's a shame because, as I want to say, he's a bigger Juventus fan than 50% of our fans. He even personally informed Chelsea today after a solid offer that he won't be joining them. He just wants Juventus, and we're trying to make it work. The thing is, working with PSG at this point is very cumbersome, very tiresome. We had a bit of an agreement with them about a potential huge loan fee with certain, not an obligation to buy, but an option to buy, which PSG pretty much accepted. Uh, then our good friend the Sheikh last minute said, "Well, I'm not so sure," and this and that. They got an offer in from Chelsea, which was an important offer, so it was very normal that PSG wanted to go at that route. Afterwards, of course, Colo said no, I won't go to Chelsea. So now it's back to Juventus, and then we have another player that's in the middle of this and a bit in the shadows, and that's Openda, because our good friend, the striker Harder, just signed for Leipzig. He's basically a player that plays the same position as
Mhm.
Openda. So Openda's gonna go. I know that we had contact with Openda and his management, and everything is settled on personal terms. And the fact that Openda costs a lot less than Colomwani in wages and transfer fees, I wouldn't be surprised if we get the double scoop in. We get Openda and Colo in.
Doesn't that put us? I mean, that's three strikers, right? It's, and we would have Vlahovic, who you said is probably staying.
Mhm.
Is that overkill? Like, I mean, I think it's reasonable that Tudor will end up playing a striker, maybe like a Openda, and certainly Jonathan David next to Yildiz with, say, a Colomani up top. Like, I think that's reasonable. Okay, so you
Mhm.
have you effectively will have a 3-4-1-2. So you definitely need to have strikers. But I think, are you over leveraged at that point? Like, does that not us last year loading up on center midfielders? And I was going to ask you this: is there's no right or left wing back that we're being linked with right now, but we are starting a center back at right wing back and a right winger at left wing back right now. So,
Yeah,
does that leave us imbalanced?
it probably will. The thing is, Tudor sees Openda as as a potential replacement for Yildiz on that position, which I
And he
find
can play
odd,
it.
but
No, he can play it.
he
He can
can
play it.
play it.
He
He can
played it
play it.
with
He
Leipzig
play,
against us in the Champions League,
He played. I think he played with when he played at Bruges the same. He played on the flank or the number 10, kinda ish.
like a
So I think
support
he,
striker kind of
yeah,
situation.
I think he can play it. The thing is, do we need to spend that much money right now on a luxury? Although I feel that we need a replacement for Kenan. Let's be honest. but we have
Not a
urgent
replacement,
matters
a
to
substitution. I want to be very clear.
substitution.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. No heart attacks on this episode yet. But no, I mean we need somebody to fill in if Kanan gets injured or gets suspended or whatever. But the thing is, I'm not even sure if we have to pay Openda. So what I'm hearing is that we offered a loan by paying his wages with an obligation to buy, which will be met at certain amount of appearances. If you see that we get so much liberty next year, um, salary wise, I think this could be, another thing to pave the way for the future. Because you talk about an abundance, but all it takes is one player to get injured or to get transferred in the January window, even, and you're left in the same situation. So I think for Juve, Openda at this point is a luxury, but also sort of a hey, look at some present fell into my lap. Let's take advantage of it. But we'll see what happens. Like you said, we need somebody as a wingback too. Let's see what we can do there.
And the question for Openda is would we see his version from 2 years ago when he had over 30 goal contributions, or last year where he had half as many goal contributions? So that, I mean, for a loan with a loose maybe that's a good trial run. Who knows? So that kind
I think,
of exhausts our names, though,
yeah,
Frederic. Is any other surprises or any other names that are being tossed around, or is this really it?
I don't think it's it. Knowing Komoli, I think he'll have a few rabbits that he'll pull out of his hat before transfer deadline day is finished, incoming and outgoing. So I think we need to stay very aware the coming, what is it, 20 hours, 22 hours.
Mhm.
Um, I hope that we can provide some more insight tomorrow. If we don't do an episode, we'll sure fill up our Instagram or try to as the things develop. But I think we're in for an amazing 20 hours still. I still see things happening, and I still see a lot of movement. And very important, our good friend Kamoli asked Tudor after the game to get on a private call with him. I think it's to assess the needs that the team has right now or still has, and what Kamoli can do to offer him some backup in terms of incoming transfers. Also, good to know Kamoli and Tudor have been meeting several times this week in between practices. So I think something is brewing. I mean, you don't just do that for one incoming and one outgoing transfer. Um, so we'll see. But I'm very happy with Nico's move out for the amount that we're getting.
Mhm.
Again, I think Kamoli, like we spoke about last episode, is doing financially an amazing job. We're getting a very good player, potentially very good player in who can replace Chico, as we saw today, who doesn't always have his best of days. So for me, I'm positive.
Well, thank you all for sticking with us through the first half of this episode, roughly 30 minutes on the post Genoa match review. And then for our sort of mini scoop, where Frederic walked us through the, relatively tame end of market activity, I would say. We debuted our transfer show in a market where to date we've brought in 2 players. So it's been a little bit of a learning experience for us, but we've received a lot of really good feedback from y'all, and we hope to continue keeping you up to date, whether it's the Instagram page. So please follow Turn Giants. We post scoops. You also can reach Frederic if you have questions directly at the Scoop Juve with regards to this. And as always, please give us feedback, whether it's on Instagram or on our YouTube page. I want to thank Patrick and Rav, who have been very patient listening to us yak on about transfers, providing fantastic analysis from the Genoa game. Frederic Thank you for your transfer stuff. And the listeners, it is for all of you that we do this. We appreciate you so much. But with that, until we speak again, as always, Forza Juve.
Yeah, siamo finiti in B, gli unici a pagare per calciopoli. Yeah, e qui non ci piove, che nel cuore gli scudetti sono 29. Volo tutto e tutti solo per seguirti, bianco nero bianco.